Welcome back. Today here in the shop we're back on the Stitches Challenger, continuing to finish this rear valance piece so that we can get it finished up, because it is all done. We just got to finish it up. The stuff that we do here applies to any project you're working on. Today we're going to be cutting off some pieces that are in pretty tough shape and replacing that with some new metal. Well, let's not talk about it, let's just do it. I'm Mike and this is my car's shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is my car's shop.
The fascinating thing about fabricating is it becomes a world all of its own where you can just forget everything in life and just focus on forming, shaping, and melting the metal. But I took some time this morning to catch my expense sheets up on this project and just to see how much money I continue to save by doing things the way that I do. And it's starting to turn into a fairly significant amount of money, and we'll get you an update on that before long. One thing I did want to comment on is I do have a rear bumper coming. I found a super deal on a brand new one that was a takeoff from a shop down in Ohio. So we'll share that with you when we get it. We'll make that part of an episode. We'll open the package and then we'll give a shout out to the company that I purchased that from. Anyway, so today we're going to work on these two end pieces where they're all mangled up, and we're going to maybe cut the pieces off and make new, or see if we can fix it. I don't know. We're going to get it up here on the bench right there in front of you and see what we can do. So there's a lot you can learn here, and I hope you enjoy this. Let's get after stitches. I'm undecided how I'm going to fix this, particularly the bottom down here. I may cut this off and just put a new bottom on. I may try to straighten that out and see what we've got. I don't know. And it's the same thing down here where I don't know if this was from the leaf springs. Maybe. Kind of looks like maybe somebody had longer shackles on here, quite frankly. I don't remember that it did, but it could be. But regardless, we need to do something. It could be from forks on a vehicle, you know, putting this on the pile. Doesn't matter. You know, we got the rest of this pretty well straightened out. We got a little trimming to do here. Of course, we haven't touched the backside yet, and some of you have been asking about what we're going to do there, and well, I'm not sure yet. So we'll talk about that as well. I hadn't taken any time yet to try to straighten this out. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can get this straightened out a little bit first and see what it's like, see if we can hammer and dolly the last of these dents out of here before we make the decision to replace this. I always prefer to use the metal that's there if I can, unless it's just way too much work to fix. It would be a fairly easy project to do that, but there's quite a bit of welding and cutting and grinding to do, and this would be just a little hammer and dolly work and a few touch-ups. So we'll see what we can do here and if we can do anything with it, and if not, no big deal. We've just gone and taken a screwdriver and a pair of vice grips and just kind of peeled that around to where I can start the hammer and dolly work. And it's quite obvious that, well, we're probably going to have to replace some metal there. But, like I said, curious to see what we can get out of it. So we're going to go ahead and do some hammer and dolly here and see what it looks like. starting to take shape. We got little dents, that's why we can't grind in those areas, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I think we're going to have to go ahead and put a small piece on the bottom here, but it's not going to be much. And I think I also probably want to put a lip on it, fold it over, so it has a little bit more strength. So we've got a bit of a work to do here, and then I've got to figure out how I'm going to blend this in. But until we get this bottom edge done, I don't want to do that. So, and this will have to be final tweaked on the car because, so I think we'll do a piece that's maybe an inch wide, maybe a little less than, and then we'll also add a crimp over on that, and we'll see what we end up with on what we can make here. I got a piece just a little over an inch cut, and I just realized that this does have, well, this way I knew it had an arc, but it's got a little bit of an arc this way also. I'm not sure I'm going to worry about putting that back in there, but I do want to be thinking about that a little bit. I guess if I folded my lip over, I mean, it didn't have a lip, so I don't technically have to put one on there, but I just thought for strength it would be nice to have it. But maybe I'm overcomplicating the piece, I don't know. So I need to think about that. I guess we need to, I guess I'm leaning towards not putting a lip on there and doing a little cut and butt to get this piece on the end down here. Just put it back to, probably put it this way, but put it back to what it was like from the factory and call it good. Again, I have a rough idea what I'm doing, but I don't have a specific plan. So let's get some crimps, clamp that down, and flip it over and see what we're looking at. There is just a little bit of an arc in there, but I think that probably is from forming this piece. I don't think it's worth messing with it. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this up where I want it, get this bent where I want it, and then we'll have a little bit of a trick here to do the cut and butt to get this to fit in there. So we'll show you that. The other thing I just noticed is there may have been a mounting bolt down here. I'm not sure the way this is looking. Got to go look at the car and see if there happens to be a tab that rusted off down here. So we will make sure that we leave this extra long so we have a mounting flange here just in case we need it, but we'll go check the car. Okay, I looked and there definitely was one. It's just rotted off. So I got to kind of bend this up a little bit here, kind of pull that back in place to see what little of that is left. And what we'll do is we'll just bend this over here to get it to be so we can have a mounting tab there. And I got to bend it a little bit on that side of the line to cut and butt, because the first thing we'll have to do is do this edge, or maybe we'll just do a butt weld. But I got to get this piece bent, because otherwise if I cut and butt this, it's got to slide that way to fit in, and we got to do this before we do this, because if I do this here, then this will not fit in there the way that it should. So I think I'm actually going to go ahead and give myself a little space here, and we'll just do a slight trim down here to give me some room. That off just a teeny bit, and then we can make that bend on that line and we'll be okay. So that's a little over 90 degrees, so we'll probably just go 90 and then dolly it in place. We'll go do that on the brake. So I got it kind of cut over, and it may not be perfect, but I think it's going to give me a mounting point. If not, I can go back and weld a piece in there, but I don't think we're going to need to. I think that's going to work okay. But we do need to cut here, obviously, and get that ready for the cut and butt. I may just go ahead and cut this corner out. That may be the best way to do it, but I got to trim this piece first so that I know. I think rather than cutting and butting, we'll just go ahead and do an actual butt joint here, get that where we want it, and then we'll go ahead and cut and butt the rest of it. We got that kind of lined up there to do a little cut and butt. And I think before we weld this, we need to go ahead and weld all of this, because it's like a giant logic puzzle, and until I start seeing things flow together, I'm not exactly sure how it needs to go, but let me flip it over and I'll show you what's, well, I don't need to flip it. So I was concerned about it that way, which is why I did it to do an actual butt cut here. But if I go ahead here and start doing a cut and butt, this is going to come up this way a little bit, and right now my edge isn't lining up because of that metal thickness. So we actually need to leave this alone and go ahead and tack weld this across here and then do a cut and butt so that falls down into place, because it does need to go that few thousandths of an inch down that way once it's in place. So I think it's going to turn out pretty good. Got a little bit of a gap there that I kind of screwed up on, but that's okay. It's just metal, we'll fill it in. And I think we're ready to go ahead and cut and butt this into place. So we go in now and start cutting our 45-degree angle, and we'll probably come up to about here and get that welded up, and then we'll go ahead and do the rest of it. Wanted to bring you over here and see, now that I got that clamped down, how everything just falls right into place. There's a little hammer and dolly work to do there, but up to where this weld is. So I'm going to go ahead and weld about an inch out here. Well, obviously I'm not going to solid weld it yet, but I want to get this caught here so that then we can continue cutting, come back and a couple more spots, cut, a couple more spots, cut, a couple more spots, until we get that all the way through. And of course I got a little situation here, and I'll leave that as a surprise because I already had that figured out, but you didn't know that. Okay, so you can see on the back side now, better than ever I've shown you before, that you end up with a piece of metal that just cuts off. Now we got one issue on this, and it's not quite cut all the way up in here. And there's a couple ways you can handle that. I didn't want to go too far with my cutoff wheel, so we could possibly take a pair of snips and go in there. I think in this case this metal is punky enough. I'm just going to do the old throw the grinder on the floor. There we go. So there you go. That's what cut and butt is. You're cutting out the old metal and butt welding in new. And now we've got a new bottom on this. Now it is a little twisted. It needs a little hammer and dolly. This work's not done over here yet. So let's get that finished up, and then we'll do some metal finishing on this. So I got this trimmed back down in here a little bit, and I twisted that down this way. So I want to weld this edge up here a little bit, and then hammer and dolly here before I weld that corner. And then we can start going along and doing it all the way along. It's looking pretty good. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape here. Welded across there. It's a little bit warmer than I normally like. I got a little, I guess, a little carried away, so I need to cool that down before I start grinding it. But it didn't really warp. I still had a little buckle right in here, and I dollied that out. I don't remember if that was on time lapse or not. But so what I want to do next is get this kind of rough metal finished, and then we got to bolt it back on the car. But I think before we do that, I want to go around and get some of this welded up on this at the same time while we're here, because I got some other stuff we need to do here, including blending this bottom together, that bottom together. Okay, so I went around and got that kind of spotted in. It's a little warm, there's a little more to do, but I want to go ahead and start grinding down here because it's cooled down enough now that I can touch it. So I did some work in there. I got a little more welding to do there also. I'll show you that in a minute. But first, let's get this edge kind of roughed in here the best we can and see what we get. Feeling pretty good. A little more work to do there, but getting pretty warm, so I want to let it cool down again. Let's see if we can clamp that down over here, maybe. There we go. I'm do a little work in here, and again, I got to weld some in there, but I also need to get some hearing protection, or I'm going to go deaf. Got it fairly well metal finished. Now we got to go fit it on the car, see how everything is. There's still a little work to do in here, but for the most part, it's looking pretty good. It's just roughed in, but overall, I think it's looking pretty good. So, but we got to get it on the car and make sure that everything is looking copacetic and not so pathetic. So here's what we have. I put it back on the car, touched up a couple little spots here, got that fairly well metal finished there. I could hammer and dolly and get more of that out of there, but I don't know that I'm gonna bother. I am from the school believing that I don't want to take my welds down too much and start getting the material thin. I'd rather use a thin coat of tiger hair to make things better. I have no problem using plastic and stuff. Obviously you don't want, you know, quarter-inch, half-inch thick, but a couple mil of tiger hair. I do need to do a little hammer and dolly here. It's got a little bit of a swoop right there, but that ain't a big deal. This is kind of roughed in down here now. I got to do a little more metal finish work there. I've got to finish welding in here, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So it's looking pretty good. I'm not disappointed with that at all. So I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to go ahead and grind things down just a little bit more and maybe go ahead and put a skim coat of tiger hair on there just because I can. I don't know. Maybe. I'm just going to make sure I'm done welding, because if I put tiger hair on there and then I have to weld something, it's going to get hot.
So maybe we'll just put etch primer on it for now. That might be the better way to go, just to give it a little bit of weld or corrosion resistance. Not much, because primer absorbs moisture, but it'll help a little bit, at least just keep the surface rust off. As far as I'm going to go with this end for now, a little bit more metal work to do in there, a little bit here, but I'm running out of time for today and I really want to get this back on the car. So I mentioned I'm going to go ahead and hit this with some etching primer. It ain't going to be perfect, but it'll help things, protect corrosion a little bit. And this is just a cheap Rust-Oleum because I'm probably going to end up sanding it off again anyway. See, it needs just a little dolly work in here now that I got something shiny on it. A little teeny bit right there. For the most part, I think it looks pretty darn good. So let's put this over by the furnace, let it bake for a little bit, and then we'll get it on the car. Significant progress for sure. It's blending out nicely. Really like the way it looks. A little bit of in here is still off on that opening, but it may be just the way they are. I don't know. I guess the bottom line is going to be what it looks like once the bumper's in. I feel like I maybe could do a little better than that, but maybe not. I don't know. So it's kind of, you kind of got to get everything together and see what you got, you know. But it feels like the opening on the bottom of that is just a little bit angled like this, and maybe it needs to, on the inside, it just needs to just a little bit. Maybe that's the way it is. The top is lining up pretty good, so I've not had an e-body before to know if those are a little bit twisted or not. And then again, once the bumperette is in there, that's on the bumper right there, maybe none of that matters anyway because it's pretty hidden. So we'll see, but I'm happy with that. It's looking good. Took a lot longer than I expected, but that's typical for me. One side's done. And I kind of like looking at the contrast between the two sides actually, so that's all good. Well, when you look at the contrast between the untouched, or I should say the unfinished, and the semi-finished, it's quite a difference. Unfortunately, I'm out of time, so I can't get at the other side, but I will get that done. It may be an episode. It may not, because it is a lot of just lather, rinse, and repeat. Ran into a few issues over here that took me a little while to sort out. My camera died, so I didn't get all of that, but you see the end product, you see the process. There was really nothing that I did on it that you haven't seen, so it's not like I robbed you of some great, miraculous, unknown technique or anything. Just a lot of little tweaking and stuff like that, a ton of grinding. So I like to show the details, but even I can only show so much of that before I find that it becomes tedious. So you get the idea. We'll go ahead and lather, rinse, repeat on this side. I just got the tracking information for the bumper, and I really got to have that before I can finish this up anyway, to get things kind of lined up. And quite frankly, I'm getting a little bit excited to have the rear valance and the bumper and the tail lights on. Maybe set the deck lid back on just to see the sexy rear end of this car intact, because I've never seen it that way. It's always been a wreck since I've got it. So that would be a huge encouragement to me. Maybe it would be to you as well. Drop your comments down there below. Tell me what you're thinking about all of this. Yeah, I may give you a financial update on this project to show you how much we've saved. Let me know if you want to see that. I know it's been a while since I've done that. We're on Facebook and Instagram /mycarshop. Yeah, I'm tired and my back hurts from laying on the floor a lot, and I'm out of time. Got to go in and get my little goddess supper made. So we'll get after that. And we will also do one more thing here before we're done. And yes, we do need to clean up this pigsty. When you're working on 3 cars all at once, it tends to get out of control real fast. But the most important thing to do is to remember,
rock.